That's the crux of today's video. This isn't a video about why you should like the WWE or wrestling in general. It's a video about how terrible. Seriously? Are we streaming on Peacock too?
WrestleMania has just come and gone, and from what I understand, it's going to be touted as one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. Wrestling hasn't been wrestling in a long time, many years. I mean, I grew up in the time period, during the 70s era, the 80s, the beginning of the 80s, and then into the 90s. And I kind of stopped watching wrestling around the end of the 90s into the 2000s, saw the changes that were going on, and I just didn't like what was happening. And then, of course, we've seen the situation with the merger with Peacock as they're merging over the WWE app into their systems, and they're beginning to systematically edit out what they deem offensive. And there are many people saying, already there's going to be a lot of stuff gone permanently. And that's the history of wrestling. Those of us who, that have VHS tapes of WrestleMania and ECW, WCW, World Class Wrestling, and Smoky Mountain Wrestling, we're still going to have some stuff to watch. But there are other people that just basically, going to be shit out of luck when it comes to this. But before we move on here, on basically what two people have said about this issue. First of all, I just want to mention, and someone mentioned it also in the comments, and I thank them for also doing it there. And at the same time he commented, I got that information. I just want to thank Monkey, I think it's undersign 420. And he had mentioned, and also the information was sent to me as well. Basically, the WWE no longer has to worry about the WWF stuff on the old shows and stuff like that. Because if you've watched some of the older stuff on WWE app, some of it has been blurred out, posters, signage, certain music, certain people saying the WWF on there because of the whole situation with the World Wildlife Federation, which that was insane in itself. There are many companies with same type, and they just didn't want to be associated with wrestling. Well, hey, there's a whole thing called advertisement. It says, we are this, and we are not that. They could have done that. And all the money that they spent with the legal issues. There could have been a compromise, and there is some sort of compromise now. So, recently after my video, and also I just want to mention this too, before I forget, I got hit with a content copyright hit on the beginning of this video. So basically, if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you notice the opening segment is either, if you saw it before and it's different now, or you see a bit of a glitch now in the opening, it's because we had to remove the segment that we used, which basically the WWE did not like. But if you do want to see it in its entirety, below in the description are our listings to our other social media sites, which you could see them there in its entirety. Most of the time, if you've seen the video here and it's changed a bit, edited, or anything of that nature, our other social media sites do not have those changes. They are the complete uncut, raw footage that we've used and that we use here, but unfortunately, content warnings and stuff like that out the door with us with YouTube. So, Jim Cornette. If you're not familiar with Jim Cornette, big guy in the professional wrestling industry. He was an agent, he was a booker, he commentated, he was a manager, promoter, trainer. On occasion he got into the ring every once in a while. Basically, he was one of the guys he worked for Continental Wrestling, Mid-South Wrestling, World Class Championship Wrestling, Jim Crockett Promotions, WCW, And, of course, he worked at the WWE, well, actually in the WWF before it became WWE, Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, Ring of Honor, and, of course, he was the owner and the head booker of Smoky Mountain Wrestling from the late 90s to 2005. And he was the head trainer at Ohio Valley Wrestling. So he's had a extensive background. Also, I just want to plug his YouTube site, the official Jim Cornette. It's going to be in the link below. Go down, subscribe to it. He does some great podcasts. He talks about, in fact, actually, he talks about the current WrestleMania, which he, by now he should have up because it was a 2-night event. He talks about the induction ceremonies into the WWE Hall of Fame, which there was some issues with that, and I love his take on that. And he talks about other wrestlers and situation, and he has a good take on the situation where Peacock is censoring content, and we'll use a couple pieces on here. But I have to take one moment in also World Class Bullshitters, and he also put up a good piece on there as well, and that'll be in the description too. And he said one of the major things on World Class Bullshitters that, guess what? Do you think the WWE is making money on merchandise off their current people?
Much like Star Wars, the WWE cannot stop living in the past. Just like Star Wars fans have shunned stupid characters like Rey, Finn, Poe, Rose, and Holdo, WWE fans don't give a shit about Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Charlotte Flair, etc. Sure, they have fans, but so does The Last Jedi. What I'm saying is people aren't buying in strictly for the new wrestlers. They stick around for the old. If the WWE were to stop making anything based on their questionable past content, they wouldn't be making as much money, period. Watch a single WWE show and you'll see ads for t-shirts. Cool, everybody sells t-shirts, right? We do too. But if you pay close attention, they advertise shirts for wrestlers who haven't stepped into a ring in nearly 20 years.
No, they're really making merchandise off of their back catalog, their history. The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, all the stuff that goes back a bit, the ECW stuff, all the stuff that has been historic. I mean, all you got to do is watch an old broadcast, and you see people with the a more recent broadcast, let me put it that way, of Raw or SmackDown, and you see the people in the audience before COVID with older shirts on. And they have posters, ECW, WCW, and all this stuff, because there are fans out there, even the younger fans on there, who have seen some of the older stuff. Like I said, I grew up with the Channel 9 WWF stuff, where it used to be on at 11 p.m. at night, and it was like an hour of wrestling, and then I get the horror film afterwards, the creature feature, right after on there. And they used to have a time limit for the matches. That was back in the day where it's like, you had the last match ended right at the moment the show goes off the air, and they ring the bell. If the match hasn't finished and there's no winner or anything, no pinfall or disqualification, the match is considered a draw. And there were times where you get that bell. It's like, oh shoot, look, it's 11:59 and 30 seconds. Oh, there goes the bell. And it goes immediately right into the creature feature. The horror film of the night on there. And it's true what World Class Bullshitter said. It's, when you look into the perspective on there, people always remember, do they care about Roman Reigns? Do they care about all these other people? No, they don't.
Roman Reigns carries the company during a really tough period. Shut your mouth, jabroni. The Rock carried the WWF when Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker were out with injuries. And Chris Jericho beat both The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin in a single night to become the undisputed champion.
They really don't. I mean, they do have some fans out there. Yes, they do have fans out there. And they're people that still go to see because they for years, they're, even some of the older fans, they won't give up, the wrestling because they figure, got to still support it. Maybe someday they'll fix it and get it back to the way it was. And then you have fans who don't care. They just literally, yeah, I love it. I like the stories I do. And that's okay too. And you see all of this. And like I said, like they said at World Class, it's, the back catalog. He also mentioned that censorship is wrong. And that's right. Straight on out. It's the people who want censorship on this. They want to remove on this have no artistic value. They just sit there and they just want to criticize everything. And they're not even fans.
Censorship is wrong in any manner. It's the people not involved in making art altering it to their liking. It seems that not a week goes by that we can't avoid the topic. If companies are not putting up pointless disclaimers to protect themselves from weak-minded fools on social media, they're removing questionable content altogether. It's a lot like the banned films list, which is a list of approximately 30 films that were at one time considered to be so shocking that they had to be cut. You'll notice the decisions were overturned, quickly in some regards.
You begin to wonder who's the one at Peacock who's deciding whether this match is watchable or not. I've even mentioned it in the WWE comment line. Every time I get an ad on Facebook, I said, you got to stop the censorship. Let the people decide what they want to watch. Don't put any content warnings on there. Let the video play. Let the WrestleMania play. I mean, they're pulling stuff out of WrestleMania. It'll jump from one match to another, missing the match in between. Yeah, a lot of it's cringy. Of course. I mean, the thing about it is, it's good guys and bad guys. Are you expecting Dr. Evil or are you expecting Blofeld? No, you're getting a little bit of both. You're getting something that's over the top. It's when you look into the perspective of the characters on there, and you go back through the history, the back catalog of a lot of the wrestlers that were on here, George the Animal Seal, Gorgeous George, the Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov. You had what was the other one? The Wild Samoans. There was so many different wrestlers with gimmicks. They were gimmicks. Most of these people weren't like this in real life. Yes, there were some of them that had issues, emotional, psychological, and that series that was on Vice that was great, The Dark Side of the Ring. I advise you to go catch that. A lot of the documentaries on there just shows the really dark side of wrestling, and some of the stuff that's on there, the Eddie Guerrero story, and many other stories that have been on this documentary type that's week to week. I mean, the things with the fabulous Moolah, just some of the stuff I didn't even know. I knew there was some issues, and there was some stuff that was thrown in there that I didn't even know about. And then the Chris Benoit. Can you find actually, I haven't even looked. Can you find a Chris Benoit match after what he did on the Peacock site? Probably not. Maybe one, if anything. I mean, that whole legacy, it's probably all gone because after the issues, the deaths that had happened. See, and the other thing that Cornette brought up was that basically, technically, they don't have the site all really going because basically, they're rushing this through. They're rushing this for WrestleMania. So basically, you can't scrub through all the episodes. Like you say, if you want a WrestleMania and you wanted to go straight to, say, the one of the Undertaker matches on there, one of the Hell in a Cell, something like that, and you just want to go straight to it because you just want to see that, it's kind of hard to do. If you ever had that happen, like on YouTube, when it tries to catch up to when you start to scrub a bit and YouTube ends up to go a little slow. Yeah, you can imagine try doing this on Peacock, which basically is not fully prepared to do it. Some people might say out there that, oh yeah, because they're not diverse enough. They haven't had black champions. They haven't. Come on, really? Then you don't know wrestling history. And I referred back to Ron Simmons. There are a good diversity in this. You've had, families of wrestlers in this from all variations, from Japanese to Mexican to Samoans to, you know, one great thing about the wrestling is everybody was involved and it was a family. Even though wrestling had its issues, it had the, you know, the steroids issues, the ring boy issues. There've been so many issues on there in a company of this nature. I mean, I guess because everything was all folded in together, maybe that was the issue.
It's one corporate conglomerate that doesn't care about necessarily the art of the situation, that owns everything. And if Peacock wants to fucking cut it up, you think they're going to say, no, you can't take that out. That's a classic match. It means a ton to the fans. They're going to go, take anything out you want. You gave us $1 billion.
But then again, back in the day, you had smaller organizations. And of course, you know, like Cornette will tell you the stories of what went on over at Smoky Mountain Wrestling, you know, where basically there was a flare match where it turned bloody and they basically could not show it.
This was probably in January of '86 or so. It was several weeks after the match had happened. And Jackie Crockett came in, and I don't know how I was alerted. I think I may have heard it playing in the other room while they were looking at it. I said, is that the flare match or whatever? Yeah. He said, it looks like Teddy got run through a razor blade factory. We can't fucking air this. We can't send this. We can't put it on TBS, and we can't send it to half of the broadcast stations in our territory, especially Roanoke, Virginia, right on top of Lynchburg. People have seen one of the local promos I did one time where they actually told the TV station had called and said, Falwell's complaining, do not speak so violently on your interviews. In
the South, because basically, you know, you'll have the religious folk or something that was said that might offend the religious right down in that time period. You know, the Falwells and stuff like that. You know, and it happened. It happened. There was some censorship in wrestling back in the day because, you know, it was edgy, but most of us got to see it still.
But classic wrestling should be the easiest television to edit that has ever been, because no territory is allowed profanity. No territory is allowed nudity. No territory is allowed any sexual content past the borderline shit that I used to get. And one time on TBS, I said something. David Crockett actually came and talked to me about it.
Even though some of it was, you know, TBS had its issues. TBS, this was a company that, like Cornette said, you know, that was showing violence, wanted to restrict violence on their channel. I mean, it's so funny, you know, when you had that happening. But you know, in my youth, me and my friend, high school friends, when I was in high school, I used to remember going over to my friend Tommy's house, and basically it was all of us, and we used to come in and watch world class wrestling that was on you know, the Saturday show. We would enjoy it, have some fun, you know, make some jokes, make some speculations and stuff like that. You know, we never got to go to a wrestling event. We never went to a wrestling event. We didn't have to go pay to watch a wrestling event. We went to our friends' houses, hung out, and watched wrestling. That was a fan. That was being a fan. And we had those discussions, you know, who was better and stuff like that. And you'd be like saying, well, you know, hey, you know, wrestling's crazy because of all these situations and stuff like that. But like I said, these were over-the-top characters. You know, I go back to the days, you know, the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov, back in the days when basically there were world issues with Iran, the Iranian crisis and stuff like that. And, you know, you had, and this is right before the Hulk Hogan era began, you know, you had Bob Backlund. And Bob Backlund fighting these guys all the time on the live events. And on television, you saw him. You know, you always had that American flag waving. It was always proud, you know, it was proud to have Bob Backlund out there. And you hated the Iron Sheik. You know, the Iron Sheik would spit down on you, you know, and people would be pissed off. But that's what they wanted. That's what they wanted. They wanted the heel to always be hated by the crowd. You know, it was always, that was the whole situation. If you didn't understand that, you know, you'll never get wrestling. You know, like I said, World Class Bullshitters put it up great, and so did Cornette. You know, watch these videos from back to forward. Let them run. Because I'll tell you, what Peacock is doing could end up to be the nail in the coffin to the WWE. You know, AEW is not doing too well. You know, maybe something else will come out of this. You know, another agency group, you know, another group of wrestlers and stuff like that. You know, there's still, sometimes you'll see that small special event from small wrestlers. And, you know, you get a group that basically are no longer in the WWE. They don't wrestle on their persona, but you got to see them, you know, close up. And then there are other small, like, YouTube groups out there that basically does the wrestling. You catch it every once in a while. You know, I remember back years ago, there were a bunch of guys that were just doing it on the back over in Harlem behind it. They were back down in the river behind. There was a public school that was closed down, and they would act it. They would have the music and stuff like that. Kind of dangerous what they did, which I would not recommend doing. But they had fun doing it. You know, and then there were others who had rings and stuff like that you were able to see them do their best on there. And then some of them became small group wrestling that they would travel just a bit. They didn't make much, but they traveled a bit. You know, this is fans. You know, fans out there. You know, when you know, and we criticize the fans out there. There are those who criticize fans, and they call them white supremacists. They call them Nazis. They call them this. They call them alt-right and stuff like that. No, they're just fans. You don't know what their freaking politics are. And some of them don't even care about politics. They don't want to talk about politics. They just want to watch wrestling and talk about wrestling. Listen to some of the YouTube wrestling sites, the podcasters out there. Listen to how they talk. Listen to what they say about this. And you'll understand that basically what Peacock is doing is an erasure of history.
But the other thing is this idea of mass censorship of moments that, as of now, it's only being talked about for what are being called racist moments in wrestling history. And it raises a lot of questions about what could or may be edited. Will every time Jesse Ventura called Tito Santana Chico be edited? There's so many. Will Saba Simba be edited just based on what the gimmick was? I mean, there's so many different things, so many things that have been said. The business used to be a different business, and I'm not justifying it, but there are a lot of promos by a lot of guys that were somewhat racially tinged. I mean, 1990 WCW.
Half of mine may disappear just for innuendo and etc.
And that should not be done. I mean, we have gone through this several times. I mean, you can go through that. There is a ban list out there of certain movies that are not seen in certain countries. China today doesn't want certain movies in their country. And that's, you know, hey, that's their country, but it's still wrong. You know, we discuss certain films being certain ways. You know, and Cornette mentions stuff like, oh man, there's some stuff out there. There was some wrestling from the world class days, and you know, the Freebirds. And that's one thing they brought up was the Freebirds. The Freebirds went around with the Confederate flag and stuff like that. You're gonna cut all that content out? You know, and you know, there was times where they wore makeup, try to make themselves a little bit more like Gorgeous George and stuff like that. Would that be all cut out? You know, you don't know who is at the helm, who is basically armchair generaling this whole situation. Guaranteed, it's not someone from the WWE. They're probably someone in the background saying, "You sure you want to get?" You know. because you're alienating the fans. Okay, Vince McMahon has drawn away a lot of fans out there. There are a lot of fans that don't watch. I happen to be one of them. I don't watch like I used to. I used to sit in front of that TV and watch it constantly, religiously. I don't watch it anymore. My brother still watches it. My brother still watches all the pay-per-views and stuff like that. He still will pay for a pay-per-view. But but the thing about it is, Vince has alienated the fans. And now that Peacock has it, they're going to alienate even more of the fans. You've seen what's happened with Doctor Who. You've seen what's happened with the DC universe, the Marvel universes, whether it's the movie or the comic books. People are just leaving in droves. The Titanic is sinking, and already everybody's on the lifeboats, and the boat it's making its last dive into the ocean. So you made it to this part of the video. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, in the description below, the official Jim Cornette podcast site on YouTube, and also World Class Bullshitters as well. Send them some love, subscribe, like, share their videos, and also don't forget to hit our subscribe, like, share, and comment below. Very important on that, and it's very important because I know 90% of you haven't subscribed that watch my programming. Please do. Please do. It's very important to us because basically, the more of you that subscribe, even though they say subscribe to my, it pushes us up in the algorithm. More and more people see us because most of the time, it's only 10% of you that are getting my notifications most of the time. I keep pushing them out further and further to make sure everybody gets to see it. I try to make announcements on all the social media platforms. Seems like that does help a bit, but subscribing does help even more. So until next time, thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye now. Oh, and before we go, don't forget to check out our new Teespring shop, our Q2Cast shop, and at our new address, Shop Q2Cast, where you could check out our new anime shirts that we have out. Anime shirts, pillows, just in time for the spring and summer. Go check them out. And we have some of our classics still available there from our TV shows. And we have more t-shirts on the way. We're redesigning the Q2Cast shop, our merch shop. We have a lot more coming. So do check us out. That's shopq2cast.com. One more time, that's shopq2cast.com. It is up and available just for you. And remember, all proceeds go to help this channel.